leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessed day.
There's a choir in Washington, D.C., and it's not music to Donald Trump's ears. It's a growing chorus of prominent Republicans who say they're too disgusted to hold their noses and pull the lever for Trump. Welcome to the Brody File. I'm Jennifer Wishon in for David Brody. After all of Donald Trump's turmoil, some Republican leaders are going public with their decision to vote outside the GOP. They say Trump lacks discipline and knowledge about policy. They're sick of his cruel comments and unwillingness to say he's sorry. Abigail Robertson is on the Brody File this week with more on who's crossing the line and how GOP leaders are responding. Abby, what the haps?
That's right, Jennifer. The haps this week are a number of notable Republicans are coming out saying they literally can't even with Donald Trump. And they feel so strongly about this, they would rather see a member of the other party win the White House in November. GOP leaders are working so hard to unite the party, but there are a couple notable Republican rebels who are not only not supporting Donald Trump, but now say they will vote for other people. Let's start with Representative Richard Hanna from New York, who is the first Republican congressman to come out and say he's now voting for Hillary Clinton. Then there's Representative Scott Ridgell from Virginia, who can't quite back Clinton and instead says he will vote for Gary Johnson, the Libertarian candidate who he thinks is the most fiscally conservative name on the ticket. Then there's Senator Susan Collins from Maine, who honestly right now does not know who she'll vote for in November, but as of now it's not Trump, Hillary, or Gary. It's worth noting both of these are retiring congressmen, and Senator Collins is not up for re-election until 2020. That brings me to our other list, filled with former senators, governors, Republican staffers who are now saying they're with her. Now, GOP leaders who really want to see a candidate who at least says they will support conservative values in the next election, they're not having any of this.
My first message is how selfish of you. Gary Johnson's not going to win the presidential nomination, the presidential election. I might add, thank God, because he's far left on values issues and on a lot of other issues.
Bauer says Republicans who support Hillary Clinton are violating everything the party stands for.
They can't possibly believe that Hillary Clinton would be better for America than Donald Trump. I'll tell you one politician that I do trust to do exactly what they're saying, and that's Hillary Clinton. She says all of her judges will be pro-abortion. She says that we're going to raise taxes on the successful in our country. So on issue after issue, she's not only making these promises, she's been part of an administration that actively tried to cut back religious liberty, that sued the Little Sisters of the Poor, for crying out loud. So I would say to those folks saying, well, maybe Donald Trump's not telling the truth, I would say to them, I'll guarantee you that Hillary Clinton is telling the truth about her intentions.
He believes they will regret supporting her.
This is a degree of disloyalty that I think will come back to haunt them, but more seriously, will end up hurting the country at the end of the day.
With at least one upcoming Supreme Court appointment, he thinks there is much more at stake in this election.
If Hillary Clinton is the next president, she will probably get 3 Supreme Court decisions, and then everything that conservatives care about, the sanctity of life, marriage, religious liberty, all those issues are over. It will take 50 years to bounce back, if we bounce back at all. I'm losing patience with some in the party that are willing to play games about this, or who think, well, Hillary Clinton, if she's president for 4 years, we'll get back 4 years from now and everything will be okay. No, it won't. They need to unite behind the party, just like values voters for decades have united behind nominees that the Republican Party has given us.
We are just under 90 days out from Election Day and have yet to see Trump and Hillary face off in a major debate. So, Jennifer, there are a lot of twists and turns that could still come between now and Election Day.
If there are any realities in politics, that's it. Thanks, Abby. On the flip side, some staunch Republicans are choosing to stick with the party above everything else. Take Duck Dynasty patriarch and outspoken Republican Phil Robertson. He was an avid Cruz supporter, but now he tells the Brody File it's time to back Trump.
He's not running for president. He lost the nomination. Donald Trump's name is on the ballot. So I supported Cruz until Donald Trump shut him down. When Donald Trump won, what am I going to do? Jump across and turn Democratic and vote for Hillary Clinton? I know her record. So I'm just staying with Mr. Trump because his name is the one on the ballot. He's the only game we got. The hand's been dealt. The Republican people have spoken. So I'm going with the Republican people and Mr. Trump.
Well, when we come back, it's the end of white Christian America. Yeah, stay with us. Welcome back to the Brody File. So here's something surprising. White evangelicals are no longer a majority in America. It's true. If you look like me and you love Jesus, you are no longer in the majority. Here's why. In the time since President Obama was elected, the nation has experienced a dramatic shift.
We've gone just in the last 8 years from being a majority white Christian country to a minority white Christian country. And I should be really clear here, that means if you take all white Christians, so Protestants, Catholics, Orthodox, non-denominational, everyone who identifies as a white, non-Hispanic Christian.
In 2008, white Christians made up 54% of the population. Today, they make up 45%. Here's why. White couples aren't having enough babies to keep up with birth rates of other races and immigration rates. Also, an increasing number of whites, especially millennials, are leaving the church. It's a new reality Robert Jones details in his new book, The End of White Christian America. And you say that because of this, white Christians are kind of having this identity crisis, right?
And a sense of real anxiety about what this means for not only the church, but what does it mean for the country?
Think about it. During the 8 years white Christians have been on the decline, the culture has changed dramatically. Gender identity issues are impacting schools, Christians are facing unprecedented levels of persecution, and gay marriage is the law of the land.
I do think the issue of gay marriage is a real bellwether issue here. I mean, it's an issue that conservative white Christians in particular were pretty much all in opposing from very early on, from the 70s all the way through. And it's an issue, as you said, that has kind of been lost. It's been lost in the courts. It's been lost in the court of public opinion.
8 years ago, 40% of Americans supported same-sex marriage. Today, 53% support it. Jones hopes his book serves as a guide to the signs of the times. They're the numbers behind the sense that something's different that's being felt across America and is materializing both along racial and political divides. His book isn't about the presidential race, but his findings help explain what's fueling the Trump train.
I think the anger that we're seeing is really rooted more in this sense of anxiety about cultural change and this sense really of nostalgia for a time when conservative white Protestants, I think, were more central to the American story, were more central to American culture, and had their hands, frankly, more on the levers of power.
Nearly 80% of white evangelicals feel Christians are being discriminated against in America. And more than 2/3 believe discrimination against whites has become as big a problem as discrimination against other groups. I mean, we're seeing racial unrest, not that divisions haven't been there, but they've been exposed in a way that I haven't seen in my lifetime.
Yeah, one challenge I think for white Christians is making connections with their black brothers and sisters on many of these questions.
For instance, 80% of black Christians say recent killings of black men are part of a larger pattern of how police treat African Americans. Just 29% of white evangelicals agree. No matter where you fall along the graph, the fact is America's Christians are still mostly segregated.
Martin Luther King was famous for saying 11 a.m. on Sunday morning is the most segregated hour in America. Still today, 90% of churches are essentially monoracial churches. So there's still not as much of that kind of connective tissue between these two worlds of Christianity.
These are dramatic realities and shifts that explain some of the American angst behind the headlines. You know, Christians have to be part of the solution. And coming up, we're going to hear from 2 U.S. senators, one black, one white, who have a simple idea. Stay with us. Welcome back to the show. Here's an interesting question. Have you ever hosted a family with a different skin color over for dinner at your home? Think about it. 2 U.S. senators, South Carolina's Tim Scott and Oklahoma's James Langford, say that's a great place to start for bridging racial divides. They call it Solutions Sundays.
Solution Sundays is a simple concept of praying and playing together. And even if you don't go to church, the concept of prayer is having a cause bigger than yourself and working on that cause together. Playing together is really breaking bread and having a meal together, bringing people who have lived perhaps most of their lives without ever having a meal with someone who's not of their color, bringing those folks together.
This is straight out of the Bible, folks. Matthew 22:39 says, love your neighbor as yourself. This idea of solving problems around the kitchen table is one Senator James Langford promotes all the time. I recently traveled to Oklahoma to learn more about the man who may very well run for president one day.
Working with so many kids, so many backgrounds, so many families. Hey, how are you? Very good to meet you. I'm James. That looks wonderful. How are you? I'm doing great.
Eating street food on Route 66, talking Jesus with Democrats, or working to block federal fumbles on Capitol Hill, Oklahoma Senator James Langford is composed. He likes Dr. Pepper and loves his girls, 2 daughters, Liberty Bell the dog, and his beloved wife Cindy.
Met in high school, actually. Now, there's some debate on what year we met in high school. Of course, I'm right on it, of course.
Sophomore year.
Yes, yeah, it was a junior year.
You know what I say, I hug all the men.
Despite a voice that would make a radio host jealous, Langford sees himself as the most unlikely person to ever run for office.
Cindy calls this life's greatest interruption. This was not something that we expected.
In high school, he felt called to follow Jesus. After becoming a Baptist minister, he spent most of his time running the youth program at Falls Creek, the largest Christian camp in the world. Then, after more than 20 years in ministry, both James and Cindy felt God preparing them for something new. One day after praying, Langford read his local congresswoman was moving on to another office.
It's as if it jumped off the page, and I heard God say, that's what I want you to do. And it wasn't audible, it wasn't a big boom. It was just this overwhelming sense of, you asked me before what I'm looking for, that's it. And I remember just leaning back in my chair and saying, well, that's insane. That's not even rational. That can't be it. But I just couldn't shake it. It was just one of those crystal clear moments.
He resigned from Falls Creek, tapped into the couple's savings, and ran as an unknown in a crowded Republican primary. That was 2010. Now he's the junior senator from Oklahoma. For the Langfords, it came down simply to obedience.
Every part of what he does is to honor Christ, to be obedient to him, to know him and make him known. And it's evident in everything that he does.
Here in Oklahoma, folks joke that if you don't like the weather, just wait because it's about to change. But voters here have come to learn that Senator James Langford sticks to his principles in Washington, even when they're not popular.
I have lots of people that catch us now that we're elected and they know we don't have a political background and say, are you having fun? And I've never understood that question, are you having fun? This is a job and a task. I'm not there to be a celebrity. I'm not there to go play. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and it's a mess.
He focuses on problems nobody else is working on. Langford is a policy wonk who relishes overseeing federal regulations. What some might find obscure, Langford sees as monumental, like wording on naturalization tests that reads freedom of worship as opposed to the American promise of freedom of religion. He fought to have it changed. They're the types of systematic problems in government that conservatives love to complain about, but rarely tackle. What's the most outrageous thing that you've discovered that the federal government is spending tax dollars on.
The death master file makes me want to pull my hair out. That's basically from Social Security saying these individuals have died. Well, why isn't that file shared with things like the IRS? We have all these false Social Security numbers that are out there that people died 10, 15, 20 years ago. People are still filing taxes on. People are still filing to get unemployment benefits on old numbers that one part of one agency knows already this person died, but the information never got to another part. That's dumb. That's billions of dollars in waste.
He believes the church should do a better job of influencing the culture instead of passing off complicated problems to Washington. Langford capitalizes on chances to share his faith and encourages Americans to live theirs.
Our faith calls us to peace, love, and joy. When we exhibit the joy of Christ, we're not demeaning and hateful. We exhibit deep love for all people. I believe every person is created in the image of God and has value and worth. I can strongly disagree with a lifestyle and deeply love that person, but to be able to set a tone of acceptance for them without accepting maybe a lifestyle choice that they have made, and to say, okay, what is it going to take to be able to present the gospel to you and to be able to walk alongside of you, that you would come to know the love of God and be able to experience the grace of God that I have experienced as well.
He and Cindy are also experiencing the blessings of their political leap of faith.
I mean, we've had so many times of people coming to know Christ with James there, and he's been a part of that. And some of those people that you watch and you think, only my God could do that.
Despite the many problems Langford sees in plain view, he suggests Americans shouldn't lose hope.
There are a lot of believers that have been elected in the last 5 or 6 years. So I look at it and I think God is up to something. At the end of Sodom and Gomorrah, God was pulling all the believers out. He seems to still be sending people in to this place. So what he has not written off, we should not write off.
Words of wisdom from a rising Republican star. Now listen, you know the reality of mass shootings have unfortunately become commonplace. So what if you knew what your chances are of getting shot? The mathematics of staying alive, next. Welcome back. Have you ever thought about what you would do in the case of an active shooter? It's a tough question, but a harsh reality. The U.S. has already seen more than 130 mass shootings in 2016 alone. Amber C. Strong spoke with Purdue University researchers who say 1 minute could mean the difference between life and death.
San Bernardino, California, Newtown, Connecticut, Orlando, Florida, Paris, France. Cities that seem to have little in common, yet they've all seen the traumatic and tragic aftermath of an active shooter. According to the FBI, the U.S. is home to a third of the world's mass shootings. That's more than 130 in 2016 alone. When an unsuspecting bystander comes in the range of a shooter with the intent to kill, time is of the essence.
About 50,000 people pass through New York City's Times Square every single day. And in a place this crowded, a single minute can mean the difference between life and death.
Take a look at this computer model from Purdue University. The black dot moving along the screen represents the gunman. Innocent people are depicted in green. If a victim is shot, they turn red. On average, an active gunman shoots about 3 people a minute, while the average police response time is 10 minutes. To save lives and to cut down on casualties, one of 2 things need to happen. Police have to arrive faster, or victims need to create a barrier between themselves and the gunman.
The obstacles, again, could be a locked door or a lockable door, a locked vestibule, for instance. We have that on many of our schools. We have double sets of locked doors coming into many of our schools. You buzz in the first door. You have a speaker, you'll offer what your business is, and based upon you announcing yourself and your business, you get in the second door.
Dr. Eric Dietz of Purdue University says that locked door can slow a shooter by 2 or 3 minutes. He also suggests other ways to stop the gunman.
The data suggests the active shooter data since year 2000 that the FBI recently published suggests that as soon as these active shooter individuals are confronted, they cease their activity. They either cease because they're engaged by the police or the friendly shooter. They surrender or they kill themselves.
So back to Times Square, or simply recall a real life scenario like what happened in Paris. Many of the attacks were outdoors. So what do you do if you're caught in an active shooter situation in a crowded place outside? Dietz says the best way to survive is to get moving, and fast.
the faster you move, the longer that you move, the harder a target you're going to be to hit, and the further away you are, making you basically a more elusive target.
That's because most gunmen aren't trained to hit a moving target. Researchers at Purdue are hoping by studying the numbers, both members of the public and private businesses can figure out ways to reduce casualties when and if the next gunman strikes. Amber Strong, CBN News, reporting in New York City.
Thanks, Amber. Fascinating stuff. Well, coming up next, Revenge of the Pokemon. The popular game has created some surprising enemies. We'll explain next. Welcome back. This is the part of the show when David Brody usually pays homage to his Jewish roots. But since I'm a Southern girl, here's the bless your heart moment of the week. The church lady recently explained the global sensation of Pokemon Go. People are literally running into each other out there, y'all, trying to catch this virtual creature. The Pokemen of Basel, Switzerland are tired of getting caught. They're taking revenge. It's part of a brilliant tourism campaign for the medieval city. The video, not surprisingly, went viral. Congrats to them, and to all you Pokemon players out there, bless your hearts. That's it for us, y'all. Hey, I'd love to hear from you on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Until next time, God bless.